And go.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Rick Smooth. I'm here with Mike Dalton and Alan Fenstermaker, and we are kicking another motherfucking episode of Back on the Road. And today we're going to talk about some of the other stuff going on in the world of professional wrestling, because there's so much going on. It all needs to be covered, and it's really just an amazing time to be here and to watch wrestling. Thank God it came around again. So Mike, tell me, man, what's going on with NWA?
How you doing? This is Marvelous Mike Dalton. This numbnut can't get my name right worth a damn. So anyway, NWA, man, like back in the heyday, was like the sister of Triple WF. Now, Saturday mornings or Saturday afternoon, you'd have the WWF on for like 2 hours. You know, you had WWF Superstars, and then you had WWF, WWF. Then after that, you would have the NWA on Channel 17, which would come on at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And then you also had Bill Watts' UWF. So it was like you had like four hours of professional wrestling live on Saturday afternoon and in the morning. Because let me tell you, nothing like getting up and eating a bunch of cereal, toast, and watching a bunch of wrestling. Now, NWA was a barn burner of a promotion, because you had guys like the Road Warriors, the Rock and Roll Express, Magnum TA, Nikita Koloff, Dusty Rhodes, and those guys, they knew how to entertain. You had the famous Four Horsemen, and of course you had the Midnight Express with James E. Cornette. And they had storylines forever, man, that kept the fans interested. Because when the Four Horsemen used to jump the good guys, you'd be like, oh, I wonder what they're going to do next week. And then the following week. And let me tell you, NWA was off the fucking hook, man. Like, that was one of my favorite promotions growing up. That and UWF. Because you had guys like Steve Dr. Death Williams, Hot Stuff Eddie Gilbert, Hollywood John Tatum, Rod Price, Missy Hyatt. I mean, the list goes on and on. And if nobody knows about NWA, go to YouTube and look up NWA Jim Crockett Promotions.
Now, Mike, I want to ask you one more question. So, with all that being said, what's going on with NWA now? Because I heard something like Billy Corgan bought it, and that now it's going to get a pay-per-view or something like that.
Yeah, what you heard was right. And he just revamped the NWA, and they now have the old title belts. It's the brown leather straps with the gold in the front of them. So they're bringing back tradition with new wrestlers. You have Cowboy James Storm, you have Eli Drake, you have Allison Kay. I mean, there's a list of who's who that wrestles for this promotion, and it's run by the lead singer of the Smashing Pumpkins, Billy Corgan. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, go to YouTube and look up NWA. There's two versions of it. There's Crockett Promotions, and there's one as a black and white symbol. You'll see it.
So, actually, I got something. You know how you're talking about the Four Horsemen? I think it's pretty cool too. Like you got Ric Flair from the Four Horsemen, and then Tully Blanchard. But now, like, you got Charlotte Flair and you got Tessa Blanchard. They're both killing it in the wrestling world. Charlotte Flair's killing it in WWE. Tessa Blanchard's exploding in the indies and Impact Wrestling, and it would be cool, like, if the other two horsemen, if their daughters got involved too. Like, you could get the four daughters of the Four Horsemen, and then bring that in there. Or at least, like, if Tessa Blanchard were to sign with WWE, could you imagine, like, put Tessa Blanchard and Charlotte Flair, have them go for the women's tag team titles? Either that, or like have like a massive feud between both Charlotte Flair and Tessa Blanchard.
I love the dream booking now, and to be honest with you, seeing Tessa Blanchard in the ring in MLW, it was just a real treat, because she could really bump and she could really sell. So, all right, so So with all that being said, now let's talk a little bit about what's going on in some of the other organizations like MLW and stuff. So Alan, let me ask you something, man. When you seen, how many MLW shows have you seen, and like what have you seen going on with them? Big shout out to the wrestler formerly known as the Disco Inferno for calling out all them ladies at that 2300 show. That was one of the funniest angles I've ever seen in my life, and I loved it. Tessa, I love you.
Well, pretty much from MLW, what stuck out to me is like with the New Heart Foundation. Like, I know they're really a team to be reckoned with in MLW. I still remember at the 2300 Arena when they won the Tag Team Championships. And then also, like, getting to see the Lucha Brothers, who, by the way, were also on AEW a couple days ago, too. So,
I got to make a quick correction on something I said. That was actually an Impact show, wasn't it?
Yeah, Impact.
Okay, I'm sorry about that. We've been seeing so many wrestling shows all in a lot of the same places that I got that confused. My bad. My bad to anybody over at Impact. And, yeah, love you, Tessa.
Anyways, what was that? Where did I leave off again? But, where did I leave off?
You were talking about MLW and the Heart Foundation.
Yeah, the New Heart Foundation, like, they're making waves. Like, you got all second and third generation superstars. Or you got Davey Boy Smith Jr., you got Brian Pillman Jr., and Teddy Hart. Yeah, so between all them, like, you got one hell of a combination.
Yeah, I gotta say, they have the greatest entrance right now in pro wrestling, only behind The Fiend. Hearing that song and seeing the way that they walk to the ring, to be honest with you, I'm really surprised that those three are locked in the way they are to whatever kind of deal they have with that organization, because it just seems like those guys should be on top of the wrestling world right now, the way that they're wrestling. What do you think about that, Mike?
Well, if you look at it in black and white, not to be funny, I mean, you got guys like Brian Pillman Jr. who are making waves in the independent scene. He doesn't just wrestle for MLW, he wrestles for PCW Ultra.
That's true.
He's wrestled for ECWA, and he's wrestled for ECCW, which he just wrestled a match with the legendary Kevin Sullivan. And that match was pretty good, even though the ending kind of sucked. But, all in all, this kid's making a name for himself. I mean, Teddy Hart and them have been around for quite a while. Now you got the new blood coming in like Brian Pillman Jr., and this kid is doing really well for himself, man. And I've met him in person. He's a hell of a nice guy, very down to earth. If you ever get a chance, if you ever meet Brian Pillman, you won't be disappointed. This kid is a future legend.
Yeah, I gotta say, man, meeting him was a really interesting thing, man. It was like kind of meeting like a long lost friend or something. And a lot of the guys, it's been that way. I know Brian Pillman Jr. told me off the record that he wanted to go hard for Philly and give. I think his exact words were "give back to Philly." For all the good stuff that Philly had done for his father, just by giving him the open forum to do whatever the fuck he wanted. Just to speak about Brian Sr. for a second, I remember when Brian switched from, the Hollywood Blondes into the Horsemen or whatever, and then into the Loose Cannon character. And, I remember my friend Magnificent Mac Dahmer was telling me all about, like, how Pillman was in the WWE at that time, and, how his character had really taken off and how he was really doing good things. And, I want to put this out there just for the wrestling world, I mean, I don't think that Steve Austin would have had the run he had without the companionship and synergy of Brian Pillman at the beginning of the WWE stuff that those guys were doing. If Pillman didn't get injured, Pillman Sr., that very easily could have been him in that Stone Cold role. I mean, he did kind of start the Attitude Era with that whole gun angle.
Yeah, and actually, too, and one thing I even noticed in your interview with Pillman Jr., I did notice, a lot of similarities in the interview that Pillman Sr. did at the arena. Like, when he said, to you, he said, whoa, you're not running this interview, I am. And then when you referenced it, I'm not trying to take away your constitutional rights. And Pillman, I remember, when I was watching that again, I was like, wait, Pillman Senior, it was the same way in his interview and it was at the same building that it happened at. Like, it's the magic of that arena.
I gotta say, you know, it was one of those situations that was very surreal for me to interview him, and I think that he's overall just a really cool guy, man. I got a lot of respect for him, and you know, I don't know. I hope he gets as much ladies as his dad did. I don't know.
As far as that's concerned, I think the man has a lot of fan base. You know, he's Brian Pillman Jr. and he's been around the business for quite a while, so his reputation suits itself, and he's very talented, just like his dad. I'm going to be curious though if he's ever going to break out into a loose cannon gimmick himself. We'll see what happens with that.
You know, Brian, if you're out there and you're listening to this, I could show you some things about being a loose cannon in this time period, man. I just came out of the music industry, and I had to straight up go Brian Pillman Sr. just to get out of the fucking place. So if you're out there and you ever need a manager or somebody to feed you some lines, you know I'm down. You know I could throw it down for you, man. So we got to where we're going here in South Philadelphia, and I just want to wrap this episode up as well for the Pro Wrestling Archives and just say thanks for listening. This is Rick Smooth saying thanks for listening to Back on the Road.
Peace out.
Thanks for tuning in. This is Marvelous Mike Dalton saying you definitely equal ratings.
And just because Mike always cuts me up, I'm going to cut him up on the way out. I'm going to say, Mike Dalton, you're an asshole, a scumbag, and all those things, but I like you. All right? Ladies and gentlemen, this is Back on the Road.